Welcome to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights, where we identify key topics in the commercial real estate industry. I'm Ann Weston, Director of Design Services.
And I'm Jessica Green, Director of Client Services. For this series, we're discussing market trends with Dallas-based commercial real estate professionals.
Okay, thank you guys for joining us. Today we have Ruth Griggs and Bryce Jackson with 34 Commercial. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome.
Great. So our initial question, we're going to start out trying to get to know you, basically more of a personal question, if that's okay. So can you tell us a little bit about your role at 34 Commercial, how long you've been in the industry, and how you came to your current role? Ruth,
Sure.
we'll start with you.
Okay. So I have been in commercial real estate since 2006. So graduated in 2004, kind of took a little bit of a break, moved back to Dallas and got my first job with Trammell Crow as an analyst. So I was on the investment sales side. From there, I spent the kind of middle portion of my career with Pegasus Avalon. So I was in-house doing their leasing here in the Design District, which is where we are right now, and Preston Center. From there, I went to JLL, and now I'm at 34. So I'm one of 4 brokers that we have right now. Been there for 3 years, and it's been a great move for me.
Great. What about you, Bryce?
Oh, man. Well, I was going to say, Ruth doesn't look like she could have been in the industry for almost 20 years. And for me, it's like the other way. I've been in the business this is year 5 for me, so I've been with 34 my entire career. And so Ruth and I do a lot of work together, along with Sarah and the rest of our team. And I've really just been spoiled because I got to join a team where we had a ton of good product to work on in some of the most primary submarkets in Dallas. And so it's just been a blast to have a great team to work with and get great mentorship and really awesome exposure to really significant deals and people in the business. So I think that answers your question.
It does. Well, kind of leading into that, what keeps you both in this industry? Like what you like about it?
Well, partially this. Obviously, we've had the opportunity to develop a relationship, us four, and I think that was the biggest thing that drew me into this business, or one of them was just the relationship factor. It's kind of a pro and a con. It kind of works for you and against you at times, but really just having the opportunity to build relationships with people and that be a part of the key driving factor in your ability to succeed or fail in the business. In addition to the fact that there's not really a ceiling on what you can do from a production perspective. But I think, the relational piece is, I think, more important. The people are the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'd say, every day is different. You wake up and you really don't know what you're going to get into that day and what part of change you can be a part of in Dallas and kind of our landscape here, and to see, just areas change and the progress that we've made, I think, in Dallas, and to be a part of that, I think is really exciting.
I love that answer, like the impact that you've made overall. That's awesome.
So our next question is kind of an interesting question based on some things that we're seeing here in the market, especially lately. So Bryce, I'm going to ask you this question. What are your thoughts on the trend for buildings transitioning to a hybrid model of office and multifamily tenants?
I think it's exciting because of the history, especially here in Dallas. We always talk about the 80s, and it's kind of a negative connotation because of everything that happened with S&L crisis during that time. Yeah, but I think, with the revitalization of those towers, which really make up our skyline here in Dallas, it's going to be exciting to see what happens. I think from my perspective, I'm always thinking about Dallas as it relates to like the bigger scheme of things in the United States, especially as it relates to larger markets like New York or Chicago or some of the older cities where they've kind of already had to go through this. The downtowns are very strong, thriving districts where there's a ton of daytime or 24-hour population and things just happening. And so to see Dallas kind of going towards that is exciting. Obviously, we don't know if it's going to work or not because it hasn't really happened here yet. And we've seen it in cities like Austin where they're starting to do that because they have barriers we were talking about earlier in terms of development. whereas we can always just keep going further and build new buildings. I like to see, readaptive or adaptive reuse for our vintage towers.
Yeah, I mean, it will in turn help our office market when we have more life downtown, more people living. It's going to help the retail. It's going to help, restaurants bring that in because, I mean, downtown has historically been sleepy. And you've got, what I call the hamster tunnels when I work downtown because everyone hides. You don't have the vibrancy of the street life because at 105-degree weather, everyone's down in the tunnels grabbing lunch. So, I mean, it's a little bit different than what you see in major cities. And so I think if we can kind of bring that back to street level, get the energy out, I think, projects like, Trammell Center has done such a great job of just creating more life right there. Clyde Warren Park has been a huge part to bridge that gap between uptown and downtown. So I think you're just going to see that continue, and I think the multifamily is a big part of that.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, when I used to lease office buildings in downtown 5 years ago, it's completely different there than it is now. I used to not really go even to downtown on the weekends. Now I do consistently, because it's very vibrant and fun down there. So kind of talking about trends, what other trends or changes do you see in the commercial real estate industry right now?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that we had to get used to is the hybrid model of working and how that kind of affects the day-to-day with office tenants. And so, I mean, there's been a little bit more creativity on who's coming to the office, when they're coming, how does parking, accommodate that? How does the office change, look? What's open office versus private office? And so, I mean, I think people are thinking about that, as the office of the future. And I think it's here to stay. I mean, with where we are right now in the economy, I think employers are getting some control back and bringing employees back into the office, which I think is a good thing. But I think it's recognized that there is going to be, some work from home model that's incorporated, and people are just figuring out how that physically looks in the office.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it's here to stay. And, the more that we can educate our clients and, reassure our clients that, this can work and getting back into the office and having, that home base is still very important and, helping them through how to set up their current office on, how to make that hybrid work, the areas that you need, the ability to be flexible. Flexibility is really a key term lately on, just making sure that you're providing spaces that can then change as, the company develops is really important.
And making it a place you want to be, because I mean, we continually say it, but there's a flight to quality. And so employers are reevaluating where are we and how do we get our employees to want to go into the office. And it's amenities and it's cool space and it's cool furniture and it's convenience and all those things are now being talked about in different ways.
So another question, how do you stay informed about movement in the market as well as the overall state of the market in Dallas?
Bryce?
I know that's a loaded question. Bryce.
I mean, I think this goes back to, I hate to, repeat what I said already, but it's relationships. Obviously, we have different groups that we're a part of, whether that be comps groups where we all kind of get together and put our heads together on what's going on. In large part, it's just being connected. I mean, there's like 3 degrees of separation. Is that what it is between you and however many people? And so I think that plays a huge part in us just being in the know, and we live it every day. So I think that also was a part of it because we're just seeing trends play out in real time. I think that's primarily, what I would say is how we stay plugged in.
Yeah.
And it's funny how we talk about trends because, I kind of feel like the future is, been expedited, that it's kind of hit us in the face much quicker than it was going to. So I always think it's very interesting that we still talk about trends because, I think that even may be a little bit more of a dated term because, really it is the future that's kind of here and, staying innovative, staying informed, and then coming up with those new ideas to make sure that, our product can kind of fly off the market, that the vacancies can get leased, that, if there's other things that we need to be doing to fill our office buildings, that we're doing that.
Yeah. Have you experienced any issues with lease negotiations or lenders not wanting to invest in office space? If so, how have you been able to refute this mindset?
So in 2020, I mean, there was a fear of long-term leases, and I think we dealt with that for a good year to 18 months. I'd say lately we haven't seen that as much. I mean, people are willing to commit to longer-term leases, and a lot of that is construction costs are high, so you do need to commit to a longer term in order to get the TI or to get the spec suite or have the space built out the way that you want it to. But I'd say, a few years ago there was the concern about how long can I commit to, and I don't think we're seeing that as much anymore. And sublease space has been scooped up somewhat. I mean, there's still some out there, but in like markets like Uptown, it's a lot less than it used to be when there was the big push to try to sublease your space. So I think we're not dealing with that as much as we used to.
Yeah. And I think the subleases, I think the velocity at which subleases are being absorbed is not so much so that tenants are afraid of signing for term, because we've seen tenants sign subleases that are almost 10 years. I think it's more about the quality of the space, location, et cetera, where you've had, different companies, whether that be in Uber, not to talk about that in a negative light, but just they have a quality space. And so tenants are going to go search for opportunities to get into that space at a discount. That kind of meets all those needs that Ruth previously alluded to.
Right.
Yeah. But from a lender standpoint, I mean, I think that it's hard to get financing for office space right now. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is we aren't seeing a lot of buildings trade hands, not a lot of buildings go to market because there just isn't the financing in the office sector right now. But dealing with current lenders, I mean, we're not seeing any issues right now with any buildings that we have.
That's great. That's awesome.
And we don't want to get out over our skis and start talking about all the other stuff that's happening in the capital markets right now.
Let your other groups talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, and Ruth, you mentioned spec suites. So, are spec suites still kind of the right way or, even the best way to move not only the smaller, vacancies or even larger vacancies off the market much more quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's a trend that started years ago at 1,500 square feet to 3,000 square feet, and now we see it up to a full floor. Right. And so I think flexibility is the biggest part, and if you can accommodate a range of sizes with the ability to add offices if needed, I mean, that's the way to go. So, we are really big on, just how do we strategically condition our vacancy, whether it's a spec suite or a white box or, a flexible spec suite, how do we do that, kind of a pseudo spec, where we can accommodate any size and time frame. And, we did see like some pent up demand when people were not making decisions a couple years ago. And so there was a rush of, I need a spec suite or move-in ready second gen space. And I think we continue to see that.
Yeah, and tenants have been less inclined to spend their own capital. And so the landlords that have had success have, for the most part, gone and preemptively done spec suites or pseudo spec suites. We've even started to see landlords build out entire floors, and they've been successful leasing those spaces because of the timing and tenants' lack of willingness to spend their own capital on their spaces.
And when you're touring 5 buildings in Uptown and you see spec suite, spec suite, spec suite, second gen spec suite, the second gen space, it just never works because you've seen, what you can do. And so it's rare that a tenant can have the vision, the time, the money to say, well, I'm going to go with that one. Yeah. So we've actually seen, there might be a building that's got all the amenities in place, but they don't have spec suites versus more of a boutique building where they do have a spec suite, maybe not as many amenities, but the space could beat out the better building.
The other thing that we're seeing is, those tenants really are looking, granted the second generation space really isn't ideal. They're not going to gravitate toward that, but are you also seeing that people are looking for that memorable moment inside the spec suite, that it's really not just kind of your plain Jane, everything is kind of bare, expecting the tenant to come in and make it their own, but that it really is reflective of, what actual tenants are looking for when they move in, that it is more the bridge between like hospitality and office, what are those things that you're seeing?
Yeah, we kind of call it the resi-mercial.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, it has the homey, the hospitality feel in a commercial setting. And, lots of times it's the exposed ceilings, but not too much, so it doesn't feel too barren. But, the soft finishes, just strategic use of layout and finishes to make it feel like a place you want to be.
Yeah, and we're ready to see a lot of these things really start hitting the market. I know spec suites have been coming on for a long time, but I think that's really kind of where the trajectory of the market is, just to make sure that it is that really easy thing that tenants can move in. Sometimes we even see that they have furniture in them already. So, you don't even have to go out and procure furniture because, I think lead times on furniture are getting a little better, but I think for a little while there, they were kind of extensive. So we've definitely seen clients, going the route of furnishing off the bat, maybe still having the flexibility of where that demising wall would be, so you can still, put that in and get the square footage of the suite that you need, but as move-in ready as possible is what we're seeing.
And I just think also due to like current market and a lot of things, a lot of people like are making these decisions of like, well, half are all my employees going to go in the office or half of them. So it's like having something they can move into that's right away. If they need to make that decision, they don't have to wait months. That's another good thing. And so they can always potentially expand things like that within that. So,
And for the sake of landlords, I think everyone's been fairly surprised at the tenant's willingness to pay a higher rental rate for the quality space, because they want to be in a place where their tenants will want to come back.
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
Are you seeing shorter or longer lease terms with that?
I think tenants have been willing to sign up for, if we're talking about a spec suite, I think there's still a limit for how long of a lease term they'd be willing to sign up for, but we've seen more 5-7 year deals being done in that size range. I think if we start to talk about new construction, and there's plenty of that to talk about, there's been there hasn't been an unwillingness to sign for longer terms, for longer lease terms. We've seen 15-year deals get signed at these recently delivered new construction buildings.
I love to hear that because, back to your point about, the subleases and, the shorter lease terms with those, it's great to hear that people are looking for those longer leases.
Yep.
And kind of putting that investment into the construction of their space,
Yeah.
things like that as well. So it just shows where they see the market going to be.
Right.
So, do you see any incentives for sustainability and energy efficiency in commercial real estate beyond new developments?
We were talking about this. So I feel like, there was a big push like 5-10 years ago to get LEED certified, and everyone wanted, the plaques on their building, and you'd pay up for it. And I think now, there is a push for efficiency and, clean air circulation, efficiency of glass, whether it's view glass or sage glass. So, I think that there's new technologies being put in place that really lead to efficiency. I'm not feeling that people are really going out of their way to get the LEED certification like they used to.
I agree. And, I feel like it's more on, the tenant side, or even, the new build. We are seeing the incentives there to, go for a LEED certification or, one of those other certifications.
The WELL certification.
Right. But, I'm trying to figure out, and, one of the things that we've been talking about is, are there going to be incentives for these existing buildings to go ahead and go for that? And, maybe part of it is, it's cost prohibitive to really do that, especially in one of those buildings from the 80s that, really wasn't set up, with the window lines or, the right, circulation in the air, that, it really would be an undertaking to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wonder if your investment is best put in another place in the building where you could add amenities or add outdoor space or do something that could be a little bit higher impact for leasing.
Yeah, because that's, those are the visible things and the things that we love. Well, our final question is, what are some of the best resources that your A&D partners can provide to you in regard to commercial real estate?
So we always love new ideas. So, we sometimes we do tenant rep deals too, and you'll go out and tour the market and see new amenities and see new spec suites. And sometimes you start to see the same things over and over again. And so if we can offer new ideas to our clients and kind of be on the forefront of new trends, new designs, just new ways to do things. And so I feel like you guys are really the boots on the ground and so good at having that eye. We like to keep up with it, but it's not our expertise. So it's great when you guys can kind of give us input on what's new and how would you make it better.
Yeah, and we love working with our clients on, what's been working for them, currently, especially with, the way things have been, if they're still in their space prior to 2020, what are the things that are still working? What are the things that are not working? If they're looking to move, what are those things that they're looking for? And then, even success stories where people did move over the past few years, what does that look like? What are the things that they really put the investment in to make sure that, it was going to be a success and, how we can use those tools for our future projects.
We also like to hear from y'all in y'all's buildings what your tenants are wanting as well, because it's different at every building, and depending on who's in there. And so it's great to know kind of like what they're thinking if we're not always talking to them directly and they've been in there for a while and they're like, well, this would be really great to have, or I heard about this somewhere else.
And then always, time and money. So, like we're finding like people want things yesterday. And so it's the quick turnaround on space plans when you're trying to make a deal and, how to most efficiently do a spec suite if you just need to move a few walls and save money rather than a full demo. So that's always helpful too.
Well, this has been fantastic. We really appreciate both of your insights and
Yes.
your time today.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Enterprise Design's Industry Insights video podcast. Please follow us and subscribe to our channel or visit us on our website at enterprisedesign.com.
And look for our teaser video highlighting the next episode. We look forward to seeing you then.